All right, there it is. All right, so welcome to the preview day here at the Outlet. This is a part of our Outlet Leadership Institute, and we wanted to give you kind of a look behind the curtain of, just our leadership and how we develop. As you can see with everyone on the screen, it's not just two talking heads, but we really employ what's called the Socratic Model. And in the Socratic Model, we make it a point that everyone has a part to play because there's such a wealth of information. There's such a wealth of knowledge that's always present. And so we want to highlight those things. And I said we got a great class.
Oh, an amazing class. And y'all will hear more from them as we talk about it. So in today's session, it's really kind of good, I think, because, we're talking about spiritual formation, but we know that it encompasses mind, spirit, and body. And so today we're kind of focusing on that body piece, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So today's discussion that we're going to be having is on the theology of sexuality. But before we get into the theology of sexuality, I want to open the floor to our inaugural cohort. So these are the wonderful individuals who have been walking with us since the beginning of the Leadership Institute, and we're coming to the final 3 weeks of the first year. So they have made it through an entire year. So y'all need to, in the comments, give them just a round of applause.
Hand clap, I know.
If you only knew, they have been working hard.
That's another story for another day.
Another day. But now, does anyone from the class just want to, for the people who are watching this preview, just want to give from your estimation what OLI just has been for you?
I'll go first. So Melissa here, and I would say really wanted to develop a deeper understanding with just this walk with Christ, been in church forever, but really wanted to learn more and have a more structured focus. So when the Outlet community offered OLI, I jumped on it. It was really exciting. And what I like about it, because I just love to learn, it wasn't an easy lob. It wasn't like a softball class. This spiritual formation class has been amazing in that it really does put you in an introspective position to not only learn the concepts, but then the way that our assignments are, you talk about the concepts and then you talk about how it applies to you and your life. And there's been some moments in some of those assignments, and there are assignments because this is school. So there's been some assignments that's been very thought-provoking, and there's been some that made me angry too. And I just wrote it with my hands pounded real hard, but it was good. All of that was good. So I'm looking forward to more of it. This spiritual formation class has been amazing.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add just to what Melissa's saying, just from your personal experience?
I'll go next. So I'm Sean Thomas. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Welcome. I'm Sean Thomas, and what I love about OLI is the ability to have robust conversations around spirituality, around scripture, and actually get your thoughts across and ask questions so that you can get some real answers and understand from a deeper level. The assignments have been thought-provoking. And you're able to, it's not so structured so that you don't have free will to give your thoughts and interjections into what the context meant to you and apply it to life. But I love to be able to have open dialogue with our pastors, to be able to actually have that theology and that undertone of what this actually means from a scriptural basis. And then also with the cohort, to be able to have that banter of how it applies to life, what we think, how it, how things actually flow in today's current times. And just to be able to have that dialogue, that means all the world. So long I've been in church where you're receiving a lot, but there's not a lot of conversation. It's all about for one way, it comes into you, but then your thoughts on that, there's nowhere to expound on it and have a dialogue on our thinking, because everybody thinks differently. So that's what I find, and I love it. I love everything about OLI.
You bring up a good point. There have been some times where, we have some real honest dialogue.
Real raw conversations. Yeah.
Now tonight, I guarantee, I'm just going to warn you, if you're watching, you're going to see a snippet, but there's a part that I'm taking off the interwebs, because one thing that we have committed to each other is that we're going to provide a safe environment for you to voice, and speak your truth. And so, everybody ain't ready for the truth. But what I love is that here you can ask those questions that you've always wanted to ask on a Sunday, or, in a particular Bible study, and we get the platform to be able to do just that. So thank you for sharing, Sean. Anyone else want to just share just your experience of OLI?
I'll share.
All right, Richard.
Yeah, so what I really love about OLI is the conversations. Being able to have real-time feedback with our pastors and with the cohort. It's just an amazing experience to be able to have a free, open discussion and get real-time feedback that you just can't get on Sunday morning when the pastor's speaking and you're just receiving it. So I would say that's one of my biggest takes from the OLI.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's how we actually learn.
That's how we grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I heard Misty say she got angry at some of the conversations, but that's all right. I feel like when you grow, you are constantly stretching. You're stretching your paradigm. You're stretching, your perspectives on things. And so I think this class has been just amazing. I've been stretched. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we had a conversation, one of the areas of spiritual formation dealt with race and racial reconciliation. Yeah. And
that was wrong.
That was
hit close to home.
Yeah, that was real. Yeah. Especially in the current climate that we live in and operate in the city of Atlanta. But what I want to do right now is, as we promised, we are going to delve into tonight's course material, where you get a chance to be a part. And with tonight's course material, we also are going to share with you just a couple of our discussion points as well. So tonight we are going to talk about, as we said before, the theology of sexuality.
Now, this topic alone is risque because you really don't hear it so much in the church setting. Well, I don't know how many sermons on sex, or I don't know, that I've heard.
Not necessarily a holistic approach to sexuality. And so our response is, for leaders, we believe that we need to live lives of full integrity, and that's spirit, soul, and body. I think that we have enough examples in media, in ministry, in life, where someone is extremely gifted, someone's extremely called, but yet they have this area or this vice, or they have these habits that in a sense disqualify them or take away their ability to speak, to, as Paul says, to become a castaway. And so we want to have an honest dialogue, and we coined it the theology of sexuality because it's not the theology of American cultural sexuality, which is a difference, which sometimes influences how sexuality is discussed. And so that leads us in really to our first question for the group and for the cohort. And if you're a part today of taking part of Preview Day, you can also let us know in the comments. We have people watching on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can join in the class discussion inside of the comments, while the cohort, they're going to be just sharing their responses. But the first question I want to ask you all is, how is the American Christian institution framed our ideology about sex? So how has church framed the way we view sex? And again, I want responses from all seasons, right? Single, divorced, married. Just in your experience in church, how has the church framed your ideology? Go ahead, Kim.
In my opinion, it's like you shouldn't talk about it. Is the first thing. Especially, I'm speaking from a single's perspective, and a single that once was married. So, and so speaking from that point of view, a lot of times that I hear friends who's been married and now they're single, it is a very difficult thing to readjust back to not having sex and have to live a more abstinence life. But the church typically, like, they always gear a lot of things towards the married couple and always tell the singles, just don't have sex, just don't have sex, which is not, be honest, we having sex, okay?
Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Because it's a hard adjustment. I'm not. Some people can do it, and some people are doing it. And some people walks of their faith life is, on different levels. So some people might have an easier time with it, and then some of us have struggled with it. But the church tells us not to talk about it, and you shouldn't do it. But they're not informing, they're not educating us, they're not giving a greater perspective on it for us to have a longevity of it until our next husband comes or next spouse comes. So that's where that's my take on it.
So that's a reality, because in essence, Kim, what you're saying is, for someone who, if the church caters more toward married individuals, for someone who is single and, was previously married, there is in the back of their mind, in their life, the experience with having sex. And the only instruction that you're hearing is simply, don't do it. So how do we now kind of give a holistic view on this? How do we talk to today's world? And how do we do it from a purely biblical, not opinion, but biblical perspective? That's
good. That was some good insight. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would like to add as well. I agree with everything that Kim said, coming from a singles perspective. That definitely is the case. But I also want to come from a perspective of being a woman. And I think that when you think about sex and relationships and all those things coming from a woman, patriarchy is so entrenched, just like white supremacy, but that was last week. But patriarchy is so entrenched into the church institution. When you think about, women are always told to keep it chaste and don't be enticing. And if you want to be a wife, how are you being a wife? And be a Proverbs 31 woman. And the men, it's kind of like, okay, but women, you can't do this. And are you presenting yourself as a wife? And you ain't married because you're not doing this. And men, and then women, it's always seen as if the reason why we got married, and especially even more specifically Black women, but I'm not trying to bring last week's stuff in, but I just think that it's always, even when it comes to, when you think about the purity rings, men don't get that. It's only women. So it's really a control factor of women's sexuality within the church. So that is what I wanted to add.
Can I add to what Andy is talking about, the women too? Well,
go ahead. Y'all just tag team. Okay, that's fine. Ain't no problem. Let me tell you.
Yeah, this is real.
The author in our text also mentioned briefly about how women enticing the men, and the women get shamed for what they wear and how they dress, how they do their hair or whatever. So he kind of like talked about that a little bit, and then we get shamed for it, not the man who can't control himself. So that's also could be an issue too. It's like, why are we getting blamed for your indiscretions because you can't control yourself? So we supposed to wear our dresses way to our ankles and our chapel scarves and our turtlenecks or whatever. But that's not real life. That's not 2021.
And then I would like to add on that too. I was literally, Andy took the words out of my mouth. And I also want to say on that line is, when men have a mishap, they are already, we ready to forgive. We need to forgive. We need to pray. We need to cover. And then their wives need to do better. Their wives need to, get in the war room, and we don't talk about things around. We don't hear about the men having a war room. Now, we don't. We don't hear about, the tarrying of the men and covering her. It's all about covering him. And what did she do? And why she have on a bonnet? And what, and
what?
Well, come on, hold my hand.
Well,
hold my hand.
Right. And why he tell what you better hold his hand, because when he said hold his hand, he mean hold his hand tight. So there's all of this pressure on women to make it right, to make it better, to be submissive. But what we miss the scripture, the Christian church teaches how women are to behave. They skip the part that tells the men what their responsibility is in marriage in and of itself. Yeah. Right? They skip the part on what the headship is doing while that wife feels the respect level and the freedom to then submit. Right? We skip all of that in church and just tell her to show up, to be cute, to be quiet, and to whatever he says goes, and cover him and war for him and forgive him.
Yeah, they all packaged up. We all look like we were jumping in to say the same thing. But so I'm not going to repeat all of that. So I'll go with the part that wasn't already said, which was, along with the patriarchal view, it's, in my opinion, it goes, so as a divorcee and then as a married woman, remarried, I can see it from the single perspective of, I remember, the conversation that was spoken on in a couple of different, church environments on, unless you're widowed, you're still married, right? So then there's this viewpoint as, especially a lot of that conversation was geared towards women, not, again, speaking to that patriarch. So it's almost as if your sexuality piece. So when we were single before marriage, it was anticipated that if you can consider yourself a sexual being, for instance, then you're better off married, right? Like if you can hold it, but so it's like, so if I'm divorced and single, but I'm not single, I'm a widow. But I mean, I'm not a widow, like I'm still married. So like I can't ever get married again because I'm not a widow. But what about sex though? Because I don't think I cannot have sex. I don't think that's something I'm signing up for. So you just saying like, that's it? Like I got another 60, 70 years, just it. So then what happens if I just have sex then? Is that just as bad as if I get remarried? Like which one carries more weight? Because you're giving more weight over here. And it's all based, and again, that's a patriarchal view, because I don't never hear that geared towards men now. It's always like, you're always married forever. But even if he cheated on you and is now subsequently with a whole nother situation, you, however, no situationships for you. You keep your legs closed. You stay chaste, go into none, sign up for a convent, the end. Wait, what now? And that's the problem.
Or do what they said. Oh no, that's for the men. Never mind. One of them theologians that was he was trying to starve himself.
Right. But and then from the married person perspective, then the conservative view starts putting limitations on sex. So now going out of the single into marriage, it's like, well, what is deemed acceptable from the eyes of God, but really from the eyes of a conservative Christian stance is really what that spewed into. So then you start putting all these parameters, and then you wonder why people are tied up in dungeons and locked away, or R. Kelly is seducing people, or so on and so forth. In the world, people, you gotta lift that. Like people are stuck in the confines of all these limitations. It's smothering. It's like a child. You give them too many restrictions, they go wild out.
Right. Welcome to OLI.
I know, I was gonna say, this is so good.
Listen, I just want to say, Bobby, I'm like, if they say God got constrictions on your wedding, on your marriage, God might want to close his eyes. I don't know.
I thought the Bible talk about your bedroom is undefiled when you married or whatever. So
it does, but we're bringing up a great point about how not biblical, but American institutional church. Yeah. So you have darned if you do, darned if you don't have sex if you're not married. When you are married, don't have it too wild. Yeah. If you happen to be widowed, don't think about it. So we have to.
And all of this is just really downplaying our humanity. We have to remember God has given us all bodies. And in these bodies, we feel he's given us sex for pleasure, right? But a lot of us, we don't know what to do with that, right? Like, especially if we're single or if we're widowed or even if we're married, sometimes we just don't know what to do with these sexual feelings because we are sexual beings. Every human being is a sexual being. So this was just some really good conversation on.
So let's follow
all
up.
These
let's follow up with that first question and go to now, everybody, I want you to give one word.
Just one.
Just one.
That's going to be hard.
That you believe defines the American Christian ideology about sex. Just one word.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Fake. It's fake.
Oh, so we got fake.
Fake.
Okay.
Limited.
Fake, limited. Can somebody write down these words?
I
want to repeat these at the end of so we have fake, limited.
I got a sound, not a word.
What? Oh, quiet, silence.
Talk about it. Silent.
Oh, silenced.
Archaic.
Archaic. Ooh.
Estranged.
Estranged.
Yep, like detached.
It's unrealistic.
Unrealistic. Woo.
Inconsistent.
Inconsistent.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic right there.
Oppressive.
Oppressive.
Was that everybody?
How many? 1, 2, 3,
8.
So it's just me and you now. What is your one word?
This is a hard one because I think.
No pun intended.
This. No pun intended. No. So one word that defines it. Sacred.
So you have sacred.
I'd say sacred.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have restricted. Wow. Okay. So we have this is and of course in the comments there may be some more. Please let us know in the comments what's your one word? What is your one word? So based off of our cohort, we have fake, limited, silenced, archaic, estranged, unrealistic, inconsistent, oppressive, sacred, and restrictive. And then we get to the theology of it in Genesis chapter 1, verse 30. We believe that God invented sex and said everything that God made not only was good, but it was very good. So how do we go from in Genesis where something God created was very good to now the presentation of it is what we've just listed? And so the reality is that everybody, I love this, every
physical body we're talking about,
has a story.
Yeah.
And so everybody indeed has a story of pain, pleasure, frustration, abuse, nurture, regret, shame, and love. And so as as leaders, we have a responsibility to minister grace to all hearers and provide a safe place for people to be able to share their story.
That's right.
For people, we got taboo, another word that came in.
Yeah.
For people to be able to just find healing for some stories. And the ultimate goal is how do we create the connection, the joy, and the fellowship that each of us are wired to have. And so with that concludes our
sneak peek,
our group discussion. We are going to delve even further in this content inside of class. And so there's a link that gives you some more information about what OLI is. Our next cohort takes flight and inside of September of 2021. So September 2021, we are looking forward to welcoming a new cohort as this cohort goes into the second year. Where they delve even further, and just our heart is to have this open, not just to our church. We believe that the outlet community is called to empower, equip, develop, and deploy the entire body of Christ.
Yeah.
And so our heart is to develop you no matter where you are. If your desire is to grow to learn, to find out how to best utilize just all the tools that we have given in the Word, then OLI is for you. Our goal is to make this affordable and something that anyone can take part in. So we thank you all for being a part of Preview Day. And we
pray you enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed. As you can see, it gets real.
It gets real.
And we're going to get even more real. We actually have a guest instructor coming on in just a couple of moments, and we'll just turn our cohort loose to have some authentic conversation. So we thank you so much for being a part of Preview Day, and hopefully we'll be able to see you in the fall. God bless.